A small town nestled among the lush green plateaus of northern Anatolia, Mengen. It has carried a proud title for generations, the land of chefs. Sometimes a single flavor can spark a tradition. A culinary fire ignited centuries ago in the palaces of the Ottoman Empire still burns today. The art of cooking, rooted in Mengen, has become a legacy stretching from imperial kitchens to private estates, from army camps to modern hotels, from village homes to restaurants across the world. This tradition has been handed down through generations, from master to apprentice, from grandfather to grandson, from the Sultan's kitchen to kitchens across the world. Each generation carried the ladle forward. Legend tells that during a campaign to Bartın, Sultan Mehmet stopped at a small inn in the town of Mengen. The meal he was served left an impression, so much so that the man behind the meal was summoned to the palace. His name was Yakup Ağa. Yakup Ağa was appointed to organize the new palace kitchens. But this was more than an assignment. It was the birth of a tradition. After a while, he brought his nephew from Mengen, a young boy who began as a dishwasher. Within the steam and fire of the palace kitchens, he worked his way up. In time, he became the head chef of the empire. From that moment, the path between Mengen and the palace was set, and it would remain open for centuries. By the late Ottoman period, many of the names running imperial kitchens hailed from Mengen, and that didn't end with the empire. When the Republic was born, its first leaders also looked to Mengen. Mehmet Yücel, a chef trained in this small town, served at the table of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk for 14 years. This tradition continued during the Republican years, and over the years, the name Mengen began to spread beyond the borders of the Republic of Turkey and spread globally. As the 20th century progressed, a new idea emerged. This mastery, passed down in kitchens for generations, could now be taught in classrooms. The man who pioneered that shift was Aydın Yılmaz, born in Mengen in 1937. He was known as the master of chefs. After decades of experience in the world, he returned home with a vision, Turkey's first culinary school, and the fifth in the world. In 1979, he made a public call, and in 1980, Mengen held its first cooking festival. Among the crowd, one message stood out: we want a cooking school in Mengen. The message was clear, and it was heard. In 1981, the foundations were laid for Turkey's first cooking school. The first students enrolled 2 years later. From then on, this tradition would be passed down, not just by word of mouth, but through books, teachers, and classrooms. By then, the flame of Mengen had traveled far and wide. But behind every great tradition, there are families who keep its fire alive. In Mengen, almost every family can count more than one chef among its own. Just as the story of this town has been shaped by centuries of culinary mastery, so too has the story of its families. The same path that once led cooks from humble kitchens to imperial palaces can be traced within generations of a single household. This is the story of one such family, a lineage where skills and passion were handed down for centuries. From Ottoman mansions and palace halls to kitchens across the globe, their flame never went out. And it all begins with Kırkdüğmeli Mehmet Ali Ağa and Seyit Usta. 40 Düğmeli, as a boy, entered the kitchens of Istanbul's mansions as a dishwasher. In time, thanks to his ability and his connections to Mengen, doors opened. He rose to become the head chef in the waterside palace of Naime Sultan, daughter of Abdülhamid II. And this was more than a job. It was the birth of a family tradition. And around the same years, Seyit Usta followed a similar path, starting as a dishwasher in Istanbul's waterfront mansions. He too climbed the ranks to become a head chef. The next generation carried the fire forward. 40 Düğmeli's son, Eyüp Çavuş, spent his youth on the eve of the Republic. He learned the craft from his father, cooking in army kitchens for commanders like Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and İsmet İnönü. When the war ended, he brought that discipline into civilian life. In the early days of Republic, Eyüp cooked at a well-known restaurant in Ankara, a place visited many times by Atatürk himself. Then he returned home to Mengen and opened his own restaurant, passing on modern recipes. Meanwhile, Seyit's son, Durmuş Usta, also carried on the family's path, working in the kitchens of Istanbul's grand restaurants and konaks. Eyüp's son, Cezmi, worked for a time in Ankara's kitchen before returning to Mengen, where he opened a bakery, another trade that would endure in the family. Durmuş's son, Hüseyin, began like those before him, washing dishes in Istanbul mansions. After years in the city, his path took him abroad. He became the personal chef of the Turkish ambassador in Hungary, serving there for 3 decades. But his greatest influence was not only in diplomacy, it was at home. His curiosity, his discipline, and his philosophy of food left a deep mark on his grandchildren. He believed that food was never just food, and in his words, a dish could carry far more than taste.
In cooking, whatever you add to a meal, that's what it becomes. If you put care, patience, and love into it, people will taste it.
From palaces to fields, from restaurants to embassies, the flame passed from hand to hand. And now, it rests in Cüneyt's hands, ready to burn in new kitchens in the world.
Cooking is our family tradition occupation. I become a chef with this way. Every family look to young childs in my homeland. If they are studying hard, they are arranging education accordingly. If they are not studying, like me, they are giving any kitchen to become a chef to save the future, save the life, because they are worrying about the futures. I become a chef with this way, but I always cook with the patience, because my grandfather was inspired me. He was an excellent chef. He would come from abroad. When I was a child, I still remember. I was sitting on the couch right in front of my grandfather. Every summer, my family and relatives gather at our village house. I was watching my grandfather. He was marinating the meat, and then I was super focusing to him, and that's fascinating to me. The way of he sprinkle the spicy and touching the meat and cooking the huge pots on the wood fire, and people were very exciting in the kitchen. That moment is fascinating to me and inspire me for the cooking all my life. At a young age, I went to work in a hotel in south of the country. It was a tourist region, and back then I had no idea it's beginning of such a long journey. When I started, the kitchens felt enormous. So many people, giant pots, everywhere. I was just small kids trying to keep up, and the kitchen team was extremely disciplined. The head chef would walk around checking every single dishes at the open buffet like a military commander. And I still remember he had a very huge walkie-talkie hands. Everyone was nervous around him. For newcomers like me, the things were really tough, and the older chef was saying, "We are hard on you now, but it will be easier for the future." At the time, it felt rough, but now I realize it. The way of their training of us for the pressures of the kitchens, and not only for the kitchen, for the challenges of life. Chefs who come from this tradition all go on a journey, and each one has a story. Some travel to the other side of the world, some stay close to home and cook for the workers in a factory. Some become head chefs in a 5-star hotels, and few even earn Michelin stars. But in the end, these titles don't really matter because we are all cooks. And our mission is the same, to dedicate ourselves to nurture of the people with the gift that nature provided to us. It's a sacred duty, and in this region, it has become a way of life, almost like a philosophy that shapes who we are. For me, this work soon turned in a true passion. My desire to discover and to learn becomes stronger and stronger. And in a way, I was always on the road. Whenever I had a chance, I found myself in the cookbook section of the bookstores. I decided to travel to different cities and countries. I worked in Istanbul, Dubai, London. I went to France to visit the vineyards and cheesemakers to test and to see the process, and I went to Belgium to learn how the cocoa process in the chocolate. I joined fairs and seminars, and along the way I started collecting small things like magnets, books, postcards from every place I visited. In other words, I was always on a journey.